I was just telling Proctor and Lotax that the food here is not bad. It's definitely not bad. It's just very mid. Like lots of cod, lots of pork, and it's seasoned. It's under seasoned in some instances, and just doesn't have enough natural flavor compared to your Italies, your Spains, your Frances, even compared to Greece where we were earlier this year. So, yeah, kind of disappointing there, but it's well executed. Like the difference between Europe and the U.S. is that the bad food here is well executed in a way that our bad food is not. And the good food is good everywhere. You can always find some good food somewhere, but the bad food here is a much higher floor than you get in the U.S.
Yeah, I could see that.
Also, the bread.
I think it depends on where you go.
Yeah.
Does Portugal do good bread? That's not something I've associated with them.
Well, I have never been somewhere in Europe where the bread is anything other than fantastic compared to the U.S. And I think a lot of that is just it's fresh and made locally as opposed to prepackaged and made somewhere else. But
yeah,
whatever it is, the bread is always good.
Yeah, like
so
literally New York City has good bread here, and that's it.
I mean,
you can find good bread in the U.S., but it's the exception rather than the rule. Here, bad bread is the exception, not the rule.
Right.
You walk into any random bodega, you're going to get good bread.
Yeah, because like here, like in Massachusetts, the good bread comes from Portuguese bakeries. So yes, we do have good bread here. You're just decent. But like, no, like you can go to any of the local places around here that there's two. There's the big bakery, and then there's the small scrappy bakery, the real spectrum of human experience. But like, no, like that is when I lived in Somerville, that was the bakery that supplied all three of like I don't want to call them bodegas. I don't live in New York. But like all three of them, fantastic. It's the one thing I miss about Somerville, as opposed to like living in a and my neighbor playing music at 3 a.m.
Corner stores.
I'd like to call it that, but it wasn't on a corner. You can't just call it a side street store.
We got to reclaim convenience store. I feel like that's
true.
been corporatized.
Goddamn Cumberland Farm. I don't know where that came from. It's too early in the morning for that.
Portugal's also weird too because there's a lot of tourists around that are not American, and there's a lot of people who live here who are American. So you get very different vibes from other tourist hotspots in Europe that I've been to. And the other thing that I've noticed is that there is a subculture trend here where American conservative coded stuff is chic, especially clothes. So for instance, we were in Lisbon in sort of the most touristy high-end neighborhood called Chiado, and they had a Stetson retail store there, like Stetson the cowboy hat, right? They had a Carhartt retail outlet there, kind of equivalent to, what's a good example, like a Soho or something like that in New York City, where you would have a Carhartt store. It just doesn't really make a ton of sense because in the US, Carhartt is coded very working class and very blue collar. Here, it's fashion, like very fashion forward. I was in this Copenhagen coffee project expat hub near where we were staying, and there was some Swedish guy. I'm just telling you what it was, man. They literally called it Copenhagen Coffee Project. There was some guy from, I think he was from Sweden, in front of me in line. He was wearing Carhartt, and I asked him like, "Do you like what's the deal here?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's very fashionable." So, and then I was just walking through Porto, and they had a secondhand streetwear thing in a little weekend market, and there was a Cabela's hunting shirt as being marketed as secondhand streetwear.
All right, and Carhartt's okay, but Cabela is like 3 steps too far on the Hick pipeline. I can't.
Yeah, I mean that's deep into Hickland.
No, not okay.
I don't have anything against Cabela's or Carhartt or even Stetson, really.
I have no idea what that even is.
Cabela's is like, it's a hunting brand. I mean, this was like a Realtree style camo button-up shirt, right? I don't think it had scent lock on it. It was just cotton shirt, but you would wear it hunting. It's just sit in a deer stand.
And they are. they're not. They're patronized by people of a certain political persuasion, Mr. Enjoyer.
Maybe 2 ticks to the right of Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah, that's actually that on the Bass Pro Shops. Like we're at like 1,200 Milla shops.
Okay, so do we have Portuguese? Do we have Portuguese and other Europeans walking around in like Stetson cowboy hats and stuff like that now?
I will say I haven't seen any Stetson cowboy hats on someone's head, but they had a very expensive piece of retail frontage in a very high-end neighborhood. Just by high-end, I don't mean like actually nice or like something people should aspire to. I just mean expensive. In a very expensive neighborhood, selling Stetsons, like a full store for Stetson brand. That's it. So, I mean, someone's buying that.
I'd read that Carhartt was having kind of a worldwide resurgence as casual wear.
Yeah, I was going to say Carhartt seems to be popular among like left of center people online. Like there's been discourse about Carhartt on Blue Sky and stuff.
This is the oldest thing you've ever said.
But I mean, people seem to be into it. You get, I mean, obviously Blue Sky skews heavily towards the Brooklyn hipster set.
I was going to say the wannabe anarchist, but go on.
I mean, potato. So that I guess that makes sense.
Of the 3 brands I've just thrown out here, I will say Carhartt is the one that I actually own something from and don't have any real negative association with. So like I don't care if the Swedes and Portuguese are into Carhartt. By all means, go knock yourselves out, fellas. But it's just funny to see that sort of translation across the Atlantic from like one cultural context to a completely different one. Because I can promise you that like the people that are consuming this stuff are not in the same ideological valence as the people consuming it in the U.S. I mean, with the exception of the Brooklyn hipsters, maybe.
Right. They think of this as like a 30-degree twist from Levi's, right? Like this is
probably, yeah, I think that's probably about right. Like it's Marlboro, it's Levi, it's Coke.
America coded.
But you don't have to replace it every 6 months.
I haven't worn Levi's since I was about 12 years old, so I don't get that reference.
No, I get all my jeans from I wait until the clearance sales at American Eagle. That's where I get mine. So I have no idea if Levi's are worth a shit these days.
And I'm a Lucky Brand guy. That's right, Lucky Brand.
Oh, he's got artisanal friggin' jeans.
I'm wearing Lucky's right now.
I guess they're like 2 clicks off of artisanal jeans, but you get the point.
Yeah, Lucky is way too mass market to be considered artisanal, buddy. I'm not rocking selvage over here. Like, come on.
Yeah, but you would. You're the type.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. You just seem like the sort of person who'd freeze their jeans.
Incorrect. Like you're just wrong on that. Sorry, buddy.
All right.
I'm sorry. Freeze your jeans?
Oh yeah, you're not supposed to wash really fancy jeans, so like people put them in the freezer so they stop smelling. They don't.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's grim. Yeah, if you go down a couple de-workwear, menswear guy threads on Blue Sky, you'll find some stuff like that. And I do get served content related to selvage on TikTok occasionally, and while interesting, not for me, man. I just like throwing my stuff in the washer and getting a couple years out of it. So
true.
Yeah, I mean, do they dissolve or something if you wash them?
They lose their color.
Defer to Ed on this.
Because it's not like this is the curse of never forgetting things, guys. Apparently they like lose their color over time if you like wash them normally. And I think you have to like get them dry cleaned or something. I don't know.
It can also change the fit, which is an issue because you're supposed to like shrink to fit on a lot of these. Like go sit in a bathtub.
Yeah. I also saw a while back a guy who was talking about this pair of, I think it was selvage. It may not have exactly been selvage. It was kind of an equivalent fabric where his jeans had gone from very, very dark blue to like a normal blue jean over the course of, I think, 6 or 9 months. And you could see where he kept his AirPods in one pocket and his iPhone in the other. The iPhone was more visible because he kept it there more often than he kept his AirPods on him. And they had gone from rolled up when he purchased them to the right length after 6 or 9 months or whatever. And he was all proud of this. I'm just like, man, this is just, do you, brother, but not for me.
People need hobby.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to get in like 5 years, they're probably going to start selling jeans that have like a pre-iPhone outline in the pocket or something like that. You know,
we are not going to have to wait 5 years for that.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that out loud? No one needs to be giving these people ideas.
I mean, it was going to happen anyway, Ed. Like, be honest with yourself.
Yes, but you don't have to hasten them.
We did the pre-ruined jeans trend that started in the 90s, and yeah, we'll get there. That'll be the Zoomers thing.
This is Normal Men, a podcast from 4 men who are clinging desperately to normalcy in an era when that's asking a bit too much. I'm George in Charlotte.
In DC, I'm Proctor Malone.
In outer Florida, I'm low-tax speedrun enjoyer.
And I'm Ed in Boston.
Ed, how's your crypto portfolio looking?
It is still at 0.
We're not a video podcast, so you can't see the face that Ed just made, but it was a good one.
It happens to everybody, and also George.
Yeah, tongue ties come for us all, especially after a long weekend trotting around a European city. Anyhow, in case you missed it on Friday, Tariff Otaku has woken up from his nap, and we are back to over 100% tariffs on China, apparently, via Truth Social post. So, unfortunately...
I like how you just slide that in there by Truth Social post.
Yeah.
Instead of, an organ of the government.
Right. The Imperial Presidency 2025 edition is you just see stuff on the president's social media website, and that's what the law is now. It's not what the law is, but, that's how people behave it. So, yeah. Great times. Love to be living in them. They're very interesting. Anyhow.
I mean, it is the law if it's just allowed to happen. So
that's certainly one theory of government.
Yeah. Although there's been other stuff that's been announced on Truth. There's been other stuff that's been announced on Truth Social that hasn't ended up being actually real. So, anyhow, we're operating under the assumption that the big wet president is very, very angry at China. So, okay, how did we get here? Back when the U.S. announced very, very high tariffs on China. Like, I think the peak rate was 145% off the top of my head, maybe higher with some specific goods, lower for other stuff, but roughly 145%. China basically said, okay, we're not going to send any critical minerals out of the country anymore. Like, y'all are on your own. You can't have it. And this is a problem because they produce, I think, on the order of 90+% of usable refined critical minerals. Sometimes people call these rare earths. They're not actually rare. They're just very, very messy and painful to process into something usable. And there's only really one country that has decided they want to do much of that, and it's China. We used to do it in the US. Other countries used to do it in the past, but saying, okay, Chinese can handle all that messy refining process, and the extraction is also quite messy, so that's fine. We'll just buy from you. That turns out to be an issue when it is critical for your military supply chain. So the last time we had really high tariffs, again, in excess of 100%, the Chinese basically said, okay, we're turning the tap off. This is interesting because the value of these minerals that are imported are negligible. It's like less than $500 million, if I remember off the top of my head. But they're just so important, and there's no other source of them, that if you turn off that tap, it has real consequences for your ability to make fighter planes and radar and other stuff, in addition to a bunch of civilian applications, notably electric vehicle magnets in electric vehicle motors, MRIs, stuff like that. That dragged the Trump administration to the bargaining table and was part of the big climb down in the tariff rates on China. We still have elevated tariffs on China, but there's been a sort of detente over the past, October, call it since June, 4 months, give or take, if I remember correctly. And that detente is now broken. So the Trump administration got mad that China responded to Trump administration efforts to choke off the supply of chips to China, and China basically said, okay, we're going to stop allowing as many critical minerals out of the country. And Trump had an outburst. He canceled the proposed bilateral meeting between him and President Xi on the sidelines of a summit in South Korea later this month. He said an additional 100% tariff, whatever that means. Someone will figure it out at some point. And also export controls on software. That could mean almost anything. Markets didn't love it on Friday.
It feels that sounds like an understatement masquerading it's not.
So yeah, there's a fun thing here that we can talk a little bit about, where markets behave differently depending on the context of what happens. So if new information comes in at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, that's going to have different implications for how people perceive it and how markets react to it than if it comes in at, I think it was 4:37 p.m. or something like that on Friday, after after the U.S. equity market had closed. There are a bunch of different ways to trade stocks in the U.S. You can trade them via ETFs or the actual stocks themselves. This typically happens on what are called exchanges that are open from 9:30 a.m. Monday to 4:30 or 9:30 a.m. on a weekday until 4 p.m. on a weekday. You can also trade them via futures. These replicate the performance, roughly, of indices of stocks. Those are open until 5 p.m. So basically, they drop this on the market, the really big 100% tariff Truth Social post, at about half an hour left in the futures market, but after the actual cash equity market closed on Friday. And that's a really good way to get people to absolutely freak out, because liquidity is really thin. There isn't that much risk taking going on after the cash market closes, but before the futures market closes in that last hour of the day. And people just kind of panicked. And we had a huge, futures wiped out 6 weeks of gains over the course of the session Friday, with the big flush coming at the end of the day. And people just hate sitting on risk into the weekend. So yeah, I hope y'all haven't checked your 401k balances. If anyone listening to this, if you've got a 401k balance and you're more than 10 years from retirement, don't check it. Don't log in. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Just ignore it. But yeah, it's.
No, I think I saw something about what looked like it was likely insider trading in crypto markets ahead of the announcement, that there was some big levered bet against Bitcoin.
Yeah, crypto.
Yeah.
The notably regulated and definitely not shady doings of the crypto industry, you're telling me.
Totally exonerated.
So one of the interesting things about Bitcoin or crypto in general is that it does not behave like an alternative currency. It behaves as a proxy for sentiment toward risky assets related to technology. That is just like, you don't have to take my word on it. That is just quantitatively true, right? It's a levered bet on tech stocks, essentially. So when tech stocks get smoked, and stocks in general get smoked by Tariff Otaku waking up and declaring 100% tariffs on China, additional 100% tariffs on China on a Friday afternoon, crypto gets hit really, really hard, because it is sort of in the same liquidity position as the stock market or the equity market at that time of the week. Like, there's just not that much interest in taking risk.
Look, it's normal to want your currency to appreciate and depreciate 10% in a day. That's completely normal stuff.
Or I think Bitcoin was down, I think, at the lows over 15%. It was a huge move.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, and for lower liquidity, less popular, smaller market cap stuff, it was a lot more. There was stuff that was down 50%. One of the features of crypto markets is auto liquidation. So there's a lot of leverage in crypto markets, and to manage that risk, various trading platforms will do what's called auto liquidating, where if you're in the red to the point where you basically have put up less than your position is worth. So for instance, if you're levered 100 to 1 and it goes down 1%, you're in the red. You get auto liquidated. You get sold at whatever the current price is. Just goes through. This is interesting from a risk management perspective, because it really does lower a lot of counterparty risk. One of the things to think about in financial markets is, if I'm taking a leveraged position in something, either a bet it goes lower or a bet it goes higher, and I borrow a lot of money to do that. The mechanics work that way. You just have to borrow to get leverage. That's what it means. If I default because the position moves against me, like if the position moves against me enough, I may not be able to pay back the person I've borrowed to get the leverage, the sort of bigger exposure to the position. So that creates all sorts of problems. This was a huge issue in 2000 because there were huge numbers of what are called over-the-counter bilateral derivatives. Exposure to interest rates, credit performance, FX, commodities, you name it, where one side of that trade now looks like, they might not have the cash to make good on this contract. One way you can solve this is what's called a futures exchange, which is we have all over the world in a bunch of different iterations, but basically you put up cash at the start, and as the trade moves for or against you, then you put up more cash or receive cash back. The initial margin is your sort of margin of safety, and your variation margin is just a daily change in how much the position's worth. If you are unable to meet your variation margin obligations, then they close out your position, seize your initial margin, and give you back whatever's left over. Crypto does a similar thing, but the way it's done is all entirely automatic. And it's the effect of this on the market is that you get really, really big moves when you hit a level that a bunch of people have exposure to in terms of their leverage long. That's especially true because, again, the leverage in crypto markets can be enormous. 100 times leverage is something you really don't see in anything with high volatility outside of crypto. They do that all the time.
And that's nuts. Great, right? That's like amazing for everybody involved. No one ever gets bit by this.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds good.
My thing about it is not to take a normative position in the sense of like, oh, this is good or bad, and more to take a diagnostic or positive position where it's like, well, that's going to have some pretty significant effects, right? Like if you have a bunch of people who are going to get stopped out and their whole position sold and reversed immediately, then you have moves like you did Friday where stuff goes like 20% in an instant because so many people got cleared out.
I mean, it means definitionally you're going to have high volume on any big downward move, right?
Yes, high volume and like basically the market is short. The way to describe this in terms of options is the market's short of time gamma. Like the size of a move accelerates the size of a move, right? It's just, yeah.
What is gamma?
Gamma is the change in the price of an options contract that is it's the second derivative of the change in price of an options contract. So if you're pricing an options contract, you can break down that contract's price into a couple of different factors. One of those is delta. Delta is if the option is struck on. So if we're buying a put on the S&P 500, what percentage of the value of the contract is coming from the change in price in the S&P 500? There are other inputs as well. Don't worry about them. Gamma is just what's the change in the delta, right? So when stuff accelerates, like when prices in crypto drop big, they drop bigger, right? There's just like this massive built-in, especially to the downside because of the stuff we saw on Friday where there was this big exogenous event and a ton of people got liquidated and the market dropped just unbelievably fast. And then it bounced back almost immediately, right? Because everyone got cleared out. And now it doesn't keep dropping because there's no one else to sell, right? Whereas in an equity market or a futures market that's more traditionally regulated or more traditionally managed, there are still buyers and sellers.
You can just say managed or regulated. It's okay.
Yeah. There is risk management in crypto. I mean, there is. You can
buy a bunch of friggin' ketamine heads.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a form of risk management we're talking about right here, right? Like, I mean, this is limiting counterparty risk for people who for the counterparties of people who are levered up.
100%. The auto liquidation stuff and the speed at which these contracts get knocked out is absolutely a form of risk management. And honestly, like similar stuff does exist on more traditionally run exchanges. It's just not everyone in the market having that sort of approach. So crypto got absolutely smoked on Friday. and it's bounced back since. Let me check prices here while we're talking. Basically, it sold off 15% in the course of less than half an hour and gained back about a third of that, I want to say, over the course of the next half hour, give or take. For context, Bitcoin was trading around 122K on Friday afternoon at Friday morning, US time. It's now at 111K live. So we're recording this on Sunday Eastern time. And yeah, I mean, you saw this waterfall, straight vertical line down, bounce back, and then we're sort of ground down.
I feel like that's a very healthy way for a market to operate.
Again, it depends what you want that market to do, right?
Not clean out people and be a vector toward fascism.
If you want to protect small investors who don't really have any idea what they're doing, it's a very poor way to structure a market. I will absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, I will say that is not the only thing we should design markets for. We really I
think it should probably be the thing that people who have no money should be prevented from doing.
There are good reasons to trade off that desire for other stuff. The degree to which you make that trade-off and the things you're trading off against is like a whole thing to debate. But I do think I will say quite confidently that if you don't have a ton of expertise in crypto and you haven't spent a lot of time understanding the mechanics of the instruments you're using and the markets you're trading, then you should be avoiding leverage and avoiding large exposures of any kind like the plague, because you are a very small fish in a very, very big sea. And what Proctor was referencing earlier is another example of this. So one of the other features of crypto, in addition to auto liquidation that makes it interesting, there are lots of them, but this is just a couple, is this idea that because the blockchain is the ledger, you can see what's happening on the blockchain. You can't hide, right? It can take some very forensic accounting to get to the bottom of what's happening, and you don't always get perfect information, but when someone, say, opens up an account, you can see that. When they then establish a very, very large, very, very leveraged short on Bitcoin within hours of opening the account, and then half an hour later the market collapses, you can see that too, especially when it turns into a 8-figure gain. It might have made it to 9-figure. 8 figures of profit, not 8-figure position, 8 figures of profit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So someone somewhere knew what was going to happen on Friday afternoon and got ahead of it. And anybody that bought crypto into that outcome got absolutely rinsed by whoever the insider trader was.
Yeah, weird. It's almost like this has happened repeatedly in that market.
I mean, it's fine. They'll catch the guy and they'll send him into jail forever. It's fine.
Well, that's the thing. It's not clear to me that this is insider trading.
I mean,
in the legal sense. In the legal sense, it's not clear to me that it's if you had done this in a futures market, it's not clear to me that it's insider trading. It could be, but it might not be.
But you also wouldn't have that massive amount of leverage to make things multiply like that. Not that it's good, but like there is a sucker at the end of on the other end of the transaction.
I'm trying to think what the maximum amount of leverage relative to expected volatility you could get in futures is. I think maybe if you did options on S&P 500 futures is maybe the way to do it. And I think you could maybe get 50 to 1, I think would be the highest you could go.
But you'd have to really try.
You'd have to really try. And also you can't just open an account the same day and get that kind of leverage. Like that's the sort of thing that you can get if you have like an established relationship with a clearing merchant, and it's a whole thing. So
yeah, they know you're not an administration official in the largest economy on earth. Oops.
Well, I mean, it's also literally different regulatory regimes, right? I mean,
well, there is no regulatory regime for crypto. I mean,
right.
It's all 100% voluntary. So I mean, there's a regulatory regime for crypto, but in this example, the stuff that is regulated or the stuff that there is regulated oversight of is not. It doesn't really apply. I mean, it's for all intents and purposes the Wild West.
Yeah, magical thinking and dudes on ketamine. Good time.
All right. So Trump makes this announcement after the closing of one set of markets, but while the futures markets are still open on Friday, which seems almost calculated to create this big swing. And somebody makes the thing I'm looking at says it was about 200 million in profit.
So they did do 9 figures. That's
yeah. And
honestly, I mean, kudos for structuring the trade the way you did. Whoever did that, because
you don't have to hand it to them, George.
I do. I can hand it to them for the structuring.
You don't have to hand.
I can say I hope they go to jail for the fact that they did it, but I can respect this.
I mean, okay. So to be fair, like crypto does have enforcement mechanisms that are let's say extra legal. There's,
not everything is from Eastern Europe.
I mean, this isn't just Eastern Europe, right? Like, I mean, they kidnapped a dude in New York City.
That's true.
And tortured him. I don't remember if he gave up his keys or not, but
wasn't that
they kill him? So I don't think he did.
I'm not sure that's dispositive one way or the other on whether he gave up his keys.
God, you're right.
I think a good question they should ask people before they invest in things is, do you know what a second derivative is? And if you
I hate
not,
that I do.
I hate that I do as well. I think all 4 of us know what it is. That should be a bare minimum for trading anything, other than just buying into a mutual fund or something.
Have you taken AP Calc?
Yeah.
Or physics or anything like that? I mean,
I'm sad now.
Yeah.
See, like, I don't think everybody needs to be able to do calculus, but everybody needs to know what calculus is and what it can do. That's my opinion on math education.
Yes.
Like, it's very simple. Like you need to be able to find the top of the hill. You need to be able to find the bottom of the valley.
Derivatives should not be taught in a calculus class. They should be taught significantly sooner than that, please.
Okay. Ed, whatever.
Look, people need to know how velocity and acceleration work. God damn it. You work in this industry.
Yeah, that's fair. So I guess then what, like 9th grade physics? 8th grade physics?
Physics for everyone. That's the Ed ticket. Vote Ed 2030 never.
Honestly, like you could probably teach somebody how to take a derivative in 8th grade, 7th grade.
Yeah.
That's when they're doing graphs.
It'd be better than the way they teach it now.
I failed calculus twice, so.
How do they teach it now?
They gate it behind trig and geometry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Things that have much less to do with it. I mean, trigonometry is important, but God, we're
yeah. So where we left here with China,
and low taxes here too.
I think the one thing that I can say with confidence is that the Trump administration has a very, very big weak point with critical minerals. That is true more based on the behavior I've seen from them in the world than it is true of sort of the fundamentals, I guess I would say, or like the physical reality of what's going on. They massively climbed down in response to the last effort to pull back on critical minerals access, and I don't see how they get out of it this time. On top of the fact that we're in the midst of a government shutdown, on top of the fact that the tariff stuff is a significant burden already and is only going to get worse with this kind of thing, on top of the fact that hiring has slowed dramatically, on top of the fact that, I mean, I'm relatively optimistic about the labor market from here, but if you get something like 100% tariffs on China, then like a recession becomes really hard to avoid because we are on sort of that teetering edge right now, and it's just that little shove you need to, not a little shove, but it's that shove you need to, okay, consumers are no longer spending, businesses are pulling back, etc. And we're not there yet, but like it's not going to take a lot to get us there. On top of the fact that inflation is still very high. I mean, perceived and like measured inflation is still very high. I do not see, they don't have the minerals, critical or otherwise. They don't have the minerals.
So let's jump back just a second, and maybe this is something you can explain to me like I'm an idiot. But if rare earth minerals are scarce and a necessary input, scarce in usable format, they're
economically scarce.
Yeah. And a critical input for a bunch of really high value things. Why are they so cheap? Why is this $500 million in imports?
Everyone's buying them, isn't it?
Well, no. So I would first off, I would call them critical minerals as opposed to rare.
Okay.
Rare earth is sort of the old, what people used to call them, and the reason they call them rare earths is because there just wasn't that much of them produced, so they must be rare. No, it's not that they're rare. It's that they're a pain. They're really messy, really dirty.
Mm-hmm.
The market for them is just not that large. Like, you don't need that much of this stuff in the specific applications you need it for. We're talking grams, right? We're not talking about crude oil, which is 90 to 100 million barrel per day. Just think about how big that is, right? Like, how a barrel is 45 gallons, right? 42 gallons. That is an enormous volume of stuff, right? So you get enormous economies of scale, you get enormous value chains associated with it, and that just is not true of critical minerals. It's just there's so little of it that's actually needed. It turns out that it's very, very useful in those tiny little increments, and tripling or quadrupling or quintupling the price of it wouldn't make that big of a difference to the end cost of whatever building, because again, you're using tiny, tiny amounts of it. But you got to have that tiny amount. You have to have it, otherwise everything falls apart.
Yeah, it's like catalysts and a lot of stuff. Like the weird thing about rare earths is that like it used to refer to a part of the periodic table, but then they added extra ones. So nothing ever makes sense anymore. But like I forget how much it is, but it's like single digit percents or less than that for like making aircraft aluminum.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Like even like you've seen like a neodymium magnet.
Right.
That's like 25%, 25 to like 30% neodymium. And like those are not large, but you kind of need them to make things go. Like there's a lot of cases like that. Just scale it up and like add missile.
Yep. So that's how you have a very, very small dollar amount become incredibly important. And I honestly, Javier Blas is a really interesting guy to read on commodity markets. He writes for Bloomberg, very well informed. There's an episode of Odd Lots from earlier this year. We can link it in the show notes, where he makes the case that, look, like this rare or this critical minerals thing, it doesn't matter, because if there's some sort of disruption between the US and China, then price will just quintuple or whatever it takes to clear the market via illicit flows or whatever. And that's, I think that was a pretty reasonable analysis. Turns out, dead wrong. Like, could not have been more wrong. And we know that because of how the Trump administration reacted the last time they raised that China raised these export controls on critical. We know that the pain point was very real there, and that pain point hasn't gone away.
Is it dead wrong, or did they panic?
The Blas prediction, and again, I'm not saying this to slag off on Javier Blas, who's very well informed and like does great analysis. The Blas analysis was that if there is some sort of export control thing that goes on, then like it'll just get ignored, right? There will be some way that the flow of those critical minerals will make its way to the United States at a much, much higher price, but that's fine, because if you go from 500 million to 5 billion, I mean, we have a goods trade deficit, on the order of what, 2 trillion a year or whatever it is. I mean, so it's fine.
No, totally. I get that. What I'm curious about, and because like this goes back to the readability of these truckle fuck, right? It's like, they do things that are wildly disproportionate to the actual impact of the thing all the time. And so like, I genuinely wonder, and like, we obviously don't know, but like, is there a difference in their behavior between them getting yelled at by people they think are big business important guys and actual impact? Like in the way that they operate as like I'm going to say it, rules-making entity.
That could be the case, Ed. All I know is that they reacted a certain way last time, and I see no reason for that reaction to change this time based on their current political context in the United States. They do not have more margin to absorb big business guys screaming at them. And really, I mean, I think it was Pentagon guys screaming at them than the last time this happened, which was May. I mean, think about the opinion polling, think about the standing in Congress, think about all of the different stuff that's happened over the past 5 months. You cannot make the case that this is a stronger position to be in now than it was 5. Like there's no way. So
this is shut the factory down kind of stuff here, right? I mean,
yeah.
Depends on the factory.
It depends on the specific product. It depends on I mean, there's definitely some inventory margin for some stuff. I mean, there's inventory margin everywhere. So, but in any kind of long duration, turn off the flows. And again, presumably some of this would end up in the U.S. through illicit flows somehow. I just find it really hard to believe that it wouldn't, given the situation with, for instance, Russian oil. China has much less ability to enforce stuff than the U.S. and the EU, much less visibility into stuff than the U.S. and the EU. So I would be really surprised if there was zero flow into the United States. But if you don't have this stuff and you want to build the high technology thing you're talking about, whether EV battery or fighter jet or MRI machine or whatever,
laser,
without it you can't. Done.
Lasers.
Oh yeah,
like basically every useful laser uses them, and it turns out we use those for a lot of things. Technically speaking, we like those.
The good news for illicit flows is that we're not blowing boats up in the Caribbean or something. So, you know.
True.
Or like antagonizing the most obvious third-party cutout sitting north of the border. We're good at that. We're having a good time.
No, they love us right now.
We actually bought a 10% stake in a Canadian critical minerals company. Why? I don't know.
We did?
They're not going to step in to fill the gap. And it's just, again, it's not, you could make this stuff all in the United States. That, on some timeline, no, or in Canada, or in quite a number of other countries. It's not that China has a monopoly on it. But you're not going to do that in less than, I have no idea, multiple years. Like, best case scenario, throw everything at it. It's going to take multiple years to get the mine spun up, the processing spun up, the supply chain running. Like, it takes so long.
And like politically, you're going to start looking at things that like look a lot more like coal mining. Like in terms of like these are human beings doing this. And like there's a certain amount of political valence to that in the US these days. Unless you are Joe Manchin, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, even leaving all that aside though, right?
I mean, like, you're right. There's tons of time to do it, but then you also have to have people who are going to be like willing to go do it. You can find them, but then you're just spiraling price.
Yeah, but again, price doesn't really matter. Like, leave price out of it. So, on some time scale, let's say that there's some sort of massive government project to just source as much of this stuff as necessary by any means necessary. We don't care about the price.
Mm-hmm.
Like the CHIPS Act.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the numbers are much smaller.
Yeah.
The numbers, it would be a tenth or a hundredth of the chips.
Right. The numbers are meaningless. $500 million is nothing. It's not even couch money.
Let's say you throw $100 billion at this. Right.
Yeah.
The problem is not, do we have the money, or is it worth investing that money to buy that independence from the Chinese supply chain? It's, even if you have all that money even if you have all the money in the world, the slowdown of trying to get sites identified, mines built, processing running, like it's going to take a long time. It just is going to do that. And we are not living in a 20th century or 19th century economy where the value added processes are relatively easy to spin up at some scale. The value added processes today that drive economic activity are many orders of magnitude more complex than the most complex thing we were doing as a species from an economic perspective in the 19th century. And 19th century thinking in that systems environment gets you bad outcomes. And we're seeing that. So, hooray.
I'm going to find a way to blame Stephen Miller. Like, add it to his list. I don't even care.
Yeah, it's a long list.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of brings us to our next topic, which is the other set of things that happened on Friday. We had a significant movement on Friday in the ongoing U.S. government shutdown. Specifically, we had RIF, reduction in force announcements, of approximately 4,200 jobs spread out over a bunch of different agencies. And we had several what I would describe as defensive plans from the administration to fund programs in defiance of the shutdown. all of these are legally problematic. We're going to go through them kind of in turn here.
Probably politically problematic too. In the case of
You think?
in the case of OSERs.
Yeah. So the political valence kind of varies depending on what you're doing here, right? So one of the things that they announced...
Let's come back to the political valence
Okay.
after we've talked about the actual mechanics, because I think the mechanics are really important to understand before we talk about how that feeds.
Yes.
Okay. So
You know our audience. They're nerds.
first of all, a little background here. There is extremely clear black letter constitutional text on the topic of appropriations. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 on appropriations says, no money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law. It's not ambiguous. It's not something that is designed to be easily gone around. If you want to get money out of the U.S. Treasury, you need to have Congress pass a law and you need to have the president sign it.
Unless they really, really want to.
Unless they really, really want to. Which gets us to some of the mechanisms that they're using here. Mechanism number 1, to fund food stamps. Levitt has proposed transferring tariff revenue. I think this is a constitutional non-starter that is going to get slapped down in court, but there are questions about who has standing and who's going to bring suit. You can't.
Why wouldn't any U.S. citizen have standing? Like what? I mean, I'm sure there's a reason for this, but I am a U.S. citizen who is impacted by the fact that Article 1 of the Constitution appears to just be being suspended here. So why wouldn't I have?
Well, the question is whether or not you have injury. And the argument
Does suspending the Constitution not
live
create an
here.
injury?
I mean, courts have previously held that no, that's not enough. That not everybody has a right to enforce provisions of the Constitution or provisions of the law. That you have to have particularized injury to stand up and say, okay, this is wrong and this is bullshit and this is illegal, so I'm suing over it. So
You have to have a material impact. We're Marxists in this country, George.
So if I'm like, for instance, someone that paid a tariff duty that's then getting transferred to WIC, could that not be argued as a taking? I mean,
I think you're on the other side of it. No. I mean, like, my understanding of standing seems to be that it's kind of like, I'm not going to say completely made up. There are rules, but like, it is in many ways a way to just hoe down the number of incoming lawsuits.
I mean, it's felt pretty fictional in recent years. Like we currently have, of course, we currently have a case that is ahead of the Supreme Court on conversion therapy for people's sexuality and the constitutionality thereof. A bunch of different states have laws banning conversion therapy because it's a
Evil.
disgusting and abusive practice, and it's very, very bad for everybody involved. But we have I'm going to call her a therapist, despite the fact that it's not clear she actually has done any conversion therapy, who has a case before the Supreme Court on her hypothetical injuries because she can't practice this thing she doesn't do.
was this Colorado again with a hypothetical injury like the Masterpiece Cake Shop?
I don't remember where she was from. It might have been Colorado. They've been a rich vein of fictitious injury in recent years.
What's going on out
is
there
an
on the Front
all-timer.
Range?
So like there's been certainly some amount of legal Calvin ball where the courts have said, okay, well, we don't have a claimant who has this particular injury, but what if we did? And then proceeds to rule on that basis. And the other side of that is that you sometimes see courts throwing up their hands and saying, well, clearly there's an issue here, but nobody has standing, so we can't possibly be asked to do anything about it. So maybe it's one of those. I think that it's probably a good thing in terms of harm reduction if food stamps stay funded. That's one that would bite very quickly, and therefore you're maybe going to see less pushback from the blue team on this. On the other hand, if you're talking about funding something outside of appropriations through tariff revenue, you have a situation where the executive is now declaring taxes and then declaring how those taxes are spent without any involvement from Congress, except in a very, very remote and attenuated way years ago when they set up these emergency tariff powers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I really gotta. Anybody that's clinging to the first option there, the harm reduction option. There's other times when we're operating within the context of interpretive statutory law or live political issues where I'm open to the language of harm reduction around policy and where you pick your fights. Shredding Article 1 of the Constitution, to me, is a really bad place to be worried about harm reduction. Like it is that level of, oh, they're suspending the Constitution. And I don't...
Yeah, like,
I think that's a really bad strategy if they decide to go with it, personally.
they're doing the harm, right? Like, they're trying to cover up their own harms in a politically palatable way, but, like, they're still doing the harm.
Now,
don't let them off the hook.
to be fair, they're not doing the harm yet. This was a float from the press secretary. Who knows if it's actually...
No. I mean, they're doing the
harm.
harm in the whole economic shit show, the shutdown, the existence of their entire thing.
Right.
The tariffs that are destroying our beautiful farmers. They're doing all of this.
Are they beautiful?
Some of them are beautiful.
Okay. I'm sure so.
So this is probably the most egregious violation that's been proposed, because you've got something that is completely end running Congress to try to fund things that would normally be funded through appropriations. Again, hasn't happened yet. Not clear what the legal positioning is going to be, but sure seems like it ought to be illegal. We also have a proposal from the administration to fund military salaries out of money that has been appropriated by Congress, but that has been appropriated for a different but related purpose, for military R&D. This is more of a gray area.
I don't think it is.
Well,
I'm amenable to the idea that we should be taking issues with nuance and on a spectrum and whatever. But if Congress says you must go spend this amount on this thing, and the administration comes back and says, oops, we spent it on something else, what are you going to do about it? And there's no interdiction of that by courts or by Congress or by somebody. Again, I'm going to be really clear here. That means Article 1 of the Constitution, and therefore the whole goddamn thing, is no longer operative.
Yep.
I'm sorry, that's it.
Yep.
And that is what's going on with changing an R&D budget over to meeting payroll for the military at large. That's all it is.
this is one that is okay. So rerouting R&D appropriations to fund military salaries would be an orders of magnitude bigger version of something that is not uncommon practice under shutdowns, where agencies find pots of money that they can use to keep ops going.
But they can't use it, is my understanding.
Well, sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. Sometimes they make the argument that they can use it, and that keeps Wile E. Coyote running off over the cliff long enough that, the shutdown is over before gravity kicks back in.
I don't know. This is one where I don't think any of us are an expert, but the internet seems to suggest DoD has fairly particular rules about this stuff, like relative to other agents.
Stay tuned. We might have a guest on this at some point. That seems like a good plug. We'll try and find someone.
Foreshadowing.
So over past shutdowns, there have been various maneuvers that agencies make to try to keep some fraction of the lights on and try to keep some people funded. And if you were to go back and look at this under the microscope, some of those maneuvers would probably not pass muster in at least some courts. Some might, but this is not an uncommon practice. I would say that standards for this practice have slipped considerably under particularly this Trump administration. I'm not going to blow up a spot in more detail, but I've got a buddy I see pretty regularly who works for an agency where a number of people are furloughed. He's not furloughed, and every time I see him, I'm like, "What's up?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm still working. I don't really know why or how, but they said they've got funding." So you have various organs of the U.S. government that clearly have funding streams that continue despite the fact that appropriations have not been passed. So, like, you have agencies and sub-agencies that have multi-year funding that aren't going to be affected because they get funded for more than 1 year at a time. So if they've still got another year of runway, then it doesn't matter to them that this particular appropriations bill didn't get passed, they're still allowed to work.
But hold on, if Congress passes multi-year appropriations, then they're appropriating money for multiple years. That's appropriating money. That's not the same thing as
Correct.
Like that is not what we're talking about here.
Right. We're talking about making the argument that something that was appropriated for one purpose can be used for another purpose by arguing that they're really the same. In this case, the R&D appropriations are not the same thing. And I think that this is an argument that's ultimately going to get thrown out. But I want to differentiate it from the tariffs argument, which is taking totally unappropriated money from the U.S. Treasury, which is where the tariffs go. At least in theory, that's where the tariffs go. And rerouting that to a program is legally distinct from making the argument that appropriated money can be used in a different way than the text suggests it should be used for.
And that's all well and good. And I really appreciate Proctor doing his very best to make sure lawyers don't yell at him for stuff he's saying here. You can yell at me. They're the same thing. I don't care what your little arguments are. No, they are doing the same thing. Like
I'm just over here staring into the middle distance, wondering at this potential spectacle of the subliterate, possibly non-vertebrate, quote, lawyer, unquotes, that these people hire, making that argument that R&D funding actually is the same thing as payroll. I want to see it.
They're gonna have to find some friendly courts.
They've had such difficulty with that.
Yeah. A significant additional prong of what's happening. I mentioned the RIFs earlier. That OMB announced that approximately 4,200 people got RIF notices on Friday. RIF notices, reduction in force, means your job is being eliminated. You are no longer necessary for the functioning of the federal government. This is also probably illegal. It's not unconstitutional, but there's laws against this happening, especially during a shutdown. RIFs are a fairly well-defined procedure, and they're not following parts of the procedure. So you're going to see lawsuits against that. And there you do definitely have standing. You have particularized injury by the people who that is being incurred by the people who are getting fired. And I would expect those challenges to at least result in those people continuing to get paid. Whether or not they continue to work is a different issue. We've had a number of similar cases over the course of the Trump administration so far, where the administration has purported to fire people and the courts have gone, well, wait, hang on. You know, all those Doge guys, many of them continued getting paid despite the fact that they were no longer working for a long period of time. Not the fork in the road guys, the guys who got fired. So I believe they've already filed suit on that in California, which is the right place to file it. And I would expect that we're going to see action on that relatively soon. The fact that they're dropping these on a Friday, I think, speaks to the political valence, to get back to that, of some of these actions, that these are not going to be very popular actions. About a quarter of the people who got RIFed work for Treasury. They're almost all IRS. So this is going to tamp down our revenue potential. We have people getting RIFed from other areas as well. And, you know, Russ Vogt is targeting this to try to make people mad. This is going after things that Democrats care about, in terms of social programs, in terms of programs that have in past become, for whatever reason, enemies of the Trump administration in particular. I believe they're laying off our entire cybersecurity division. CISA is one of the divisions targeted for RIF because the Trump administration feels that they did bad things in the 2020 election in terms of saying that there was Russian involvement in Russian cyber attacks, and they didn't like that. So now those guys are all non-person, and we have no more cyber defense.
I understand at a cold and calculating level that some of these people will skate. Not him. Not Russ Vogt.
Yep.
CISA does not quite unimpeachable work, but pretty close. And Woke 2 needs to make a personal enemy of him.
I think they made a pretty good move on fomenting woke too.
It's true.
Because they apparently riffed the Office for Special Education and Rehabilitation Services in the U.S. Department of Education, which is the main office in U.S. DOE that handles policy on students with disabilities. And I posted this on Blue Sky, but I'll say it here too. An old colleague of mine, African-American gentleman, very funny guy, great guy, had a real ability to cut through bullshit, said to me one time, there are two groups of people you never want to piss off. One is old ladies in sneakers, because they got nothing but time. And the other is the parents of students with disabilities. And so laying off all of OSER's, good luck, fellas. Let's see how that goes for you.
Is it going to hurt? A lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to hurt us, but it's going to hurt them too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
One of the wild things about, the frigging all stick, no carrot administration is that, like, there are staggering amounts of right-wing people who benefit from this and know they benefit from it. This is one of the most visible ones.
And it would be relatively easy to carve out a lot of the people that benefit from, if you wanted to use these specific kinds of issues as pain points, you could carve people, there's ways you could carve them out, but they're idiots. They just, whole thing.
I mean, they're idiots, yes, but they're also moral voids. That's also true. And they're also extremely ugly. But like, thank you for the pit laugh. But like, I could keep going. I have a list. But like so my wife works in special education, and like you can, my understanding is you can tell, right? Like you can definitely tell the political leanings of some of these folks, and like these schools ain't cheap. These schools are very not cheap. And
Yeah.
While her org is not quite so impacted, as I understand it, like some of these parents, they can't afford this. And it's going to really, like, if the theory is no one will ever, like, not back Donald Trump because he is the big wet president of their dreams, like, they seem damn determined to test it.
Yeah, these are not just single issue voters. In a lot of cases, particularly,
They might be now.
Well, I mean, parents of disabled kids frequently are not just single issue voters. They're single issue livers. This is what their entire lives are built around, and this represents a significant assault on some of the pillars of what they built their life around.
One of the things we've noticed being in Europe is stuff that we take for granted in the States in terms of disability access. There are places here that do a really good job in terms of effort or consideration around folks with disabilities, especially significant physical disability. I'm not saying it's universally this way, but when your physical environment is based on urban planning that was done half a millennia ago, there's only so much you can do. And I think the next time you walk around your city, your town, whatever, or drive around and then walk around a shopping center or whatever it is you do, imagine everywhere you have to go moving on wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And now imagine this being your reality everywhere you go all the time. And for someone that isn't that way, like, I am capable of carrying my daughter on my shoulders and her stroller collapsed in my hand for like a mile and a half and get a little sweaty. That's kind of it. Up and down every kind of stair and across street, cobblestones doesn't bother, whatever, fine. Turning off that default framing in your head is hard to do. It's helpful to try and do it when you can. No able-bodied person is going to be able to do it perfectly all the time, but when you can, it's really helpful to do because it will completely change how you think about the world. And for parents of a child who is severely disabled, severe mental or physical disabilities that cannot take care of themselves, cannot wash themselves, clothe themselves, feed themselves, transport themselves, consume the medication they need to consume, do the therapy they need to do. To describe that as a totalizing experience is almost like the biggest understatement imaginable. Because I think a lot of people that probably fall into the demographic that listen to this are not, if you don't have kids, you're probably not used to thinking about everything in terms of caring for another person. Because, frankly, people in our political valence don't tend to have those kind of attachment. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but a lot of them don't. Caring for a kid is hard. Caring for a kid who can do nothing to care for themselves and will probably need that care for the rest of their lives is an immense, immense burden. And it's one that this group of people in the White House has just taken out back and hit over the head with a pipe. And it's deeply evil stuff. It's deeply evil stuff. And cuts to Medicaid fall into the exact same category.
Yeah, the ADA is one of the better things we've done as a country. And
yeah,
I think that's...
Couldn't agree more.
That's been an important kind of second wave expansion of what it means to be an American and be able to participate as fully as possible in society. And, you know, the degree to which the Trump administration has tried to undermine that in particular is I think somewhat understated. This is not an administration that philosophically has a lot of empathy for anyone, but particularly empathy for people with physical limitations.
So because I am a computer weirdo, like, oddly enough, I spend more time thinking about this than you would expect because, like, accessibility in tech is important. A good friend of mine he is the sole operator of, like, the best voice control software that exists on the planet for a computer. And no one knows about it. If you need it, Google Talent. It's very good. But, like, the wild thing is that, like, it is still an uphill battle in some environments to get people to care about it. Like, for example, at my job, one of the things that we actually have to go through is accessibility, right? We have an accessibility team that, do I agree with everything they do? No. But, like, they're trying to be like, how do you use this thing? And some of it is legal because of the ADA. But also, like, the big struggle ends up being that a lot of people just go, this is just wasting our time. And then somebody, parentheses me, is like, no, it's important. You have to do it. And, like, that's one of the things that I found really weird about this is that, like, I'm not saying that this is a direct one-to-one, but, like, the tech, and I work for a telco. It's not quite normal tech, but I've seen this before. So that's kind of where I'm getting this. Like, it feels like a very similar outgrowth. And you see it in things like Doge. You see it in all of these things where it's like these folks are not, they've lived life on a very easy level. And I say that as somebody who has had a pretty flat road myself. They just don't think about it. And, like, it's infected the people they talk to, then it's infected the people who pretend to think in that space. And then it gets into, like, the quote unquote leadership. Basically, it's another thing we can blame Curtis Yarvin for. But, like, it's just weird to see it because, like, it's an active step backwards on things that not only do they use, but, like, they're almost free. A concrete ramp is not that expensive. I know, I built them. And it's just like, why do you keep stapling your hand to your face? Frigging idiots.
Complete failure of basic imagination and human empathy, too. Right? Like, on top of just intellectual dullardness, it's also just such contempt and lack of ability to do the mental effort of thinking about something from someone else's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And look, sometimes it can be hard. Like I said earlier, it takes effort to think about something from the perspective of another person. You have to step outside yourself and be creative in a lot of ways that can be really hard for anybody. Mm-hmm. But God damn, like, there's a level of basic empathy that requires that behavior as a standard. When you're walking down the street and walking down a crowded sidewalk and deciding whether you're going to yield or you're not going to yield to a given group of people coming your way or a given person coming your way. Like, do you think, you as the listener, do you think about that when you're walking along, or is that just all back of your mind processing? Because I think about that. because I'm a 6'3", 240-pound, 230-pound white dude, and me charging down someone's throat on a sidewalk can come across as extremely hostile, even if I don't mean it that way. Whereas if you're someone of a different physical persuasion, then you not yielding when you're walking can be interpreted completely differently because you're not a physical threat to anybody around you. Try and think about the world around you from the perspective of other people, because our tech overlords and the current political leadership of the United States certainly doesn't. Certainly doesn't.
The one thing I want to add to it is that in addition to a lack of empathy, it's a lack of foresight. Sooner or later, most of us will be more decrepit than we are today. We will not be able to see as well. We will not be able to speak as well. We will not be able to move as well. We will age. And
that's because we're not listening to Brian Johnson.
I was going to say, I see better than I ever have in my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
We got a cyborg in our midst.
So, someday accommodations are going to become relevant to you, even if they are not today, because you are a specimen of youth and vigor. And I think that kind of feeds into some of the difficulty that tech in particular, which tends to be a younger industry, or at least has been so far, sometimes has with viewing accommodation as being part of the core mission.
I mean, that's mostly past tense now for tech. Now they're just chasing immortality because they're scared. But
good luck, fellas.
Yeah, you're right. The thing that haunts my mind is
they won't. We're good. Maybe in a century. Not in our lifespans. The lights are going to go off for everyone here and anyone that's listening to this, so it's fine. I'm cool with it.
I'm more of an optimist than you are, and I think that's bad now.
Of all the ridiculous things they have claimed they are going to do, whether it is colonizing Mars or self-driving cars or artificial general intelligence, that is the least likely one.
Oh yeah, they did the car. And I'll be honest, I said this week.
Not really.
Waymo's.
No,
really
they did the cars. Sorry.
Waymo's really good.
No, they didn't do the cars.
They did. Have you ever been in a Waymo? Because I have. It's magic.
You can't geofence and claim you did the cars. Does the car work in the middle of nowhere in fucking Tennessee?
This is Jeep bias.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is that Jeep bias?
This is like saying we don't have off-roading vehicles because a Bronco's axle will break if you take it down the wrong road, which, I'm sure gives you nothing but delight, but come on.
Also, there are practicable self-driving long-haul trucks and stuff now.
No, I agree. Within very narrow parameters,
I feel like we're getting into salami slicing territory here.
Okay, they work in San Francisco and Phoenix.
Well, I mean, they're about to work in DC. I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm skeptical.
I mean, they're not in real America. I'll give you that.
They have not dealt with DC drivers.
I will say any automated conveyance or vehicle conveyance that can handle the Los Angeles basin writ large and come out without a massive death toll is doing something right. So I don't know. And you're right, they are geofenced, but man, LA drivers are a whole different thing. Not in terms of lack of skill, but the other way around. And
more murderous intent.
Yes. Yes.
Oh no, LA's not murderous intent. Y'all need to come to Miami. That's murderous intent.
No, hold on. Is that murderous intent, or is that people that just don't know how to drive at all? Because that's how it is where I'm at. And Atlanta.
Okay, that's fair.
You don't have to know how to drive in Atlanta though, because you just stay parked.
Yeah, that's true.
Every interstate.
Is Waymo actually in Los Angeles now?
Has been for years. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew they were in San Francisco, and I knew they were in
Phoenix. They
Phoenix.
were called in earlier this year. There were a bunch of protests that got a little bit out of hand in LA, and people were calling Waymos in and then lighting them on fire, and they had to deal with that. So that was the thing.
I will say I don't endorse that behavior, but it is very funny.
See, I thought that was kind of beautiful in a way, because
use the system.
As you may recall, Waymos are all Jaguars. That their contract is such that the cars are all Jags.
Oh, not anymore. Have you seen the new vans?
I have not seen the vans, but in LA, the cars were all Jags.
Yeah.
So what you had is
I thought they were Chevy Bolts and
No, they've got Jack.
and Chrysler Pacificas. Jags. Wow.
what you had a bunch of like Azatlan La Raza nationalists in LA who were hunting the Jaguar.
But like the most neutered version of that noble feline, right? Like you're not talking about some killer instinct clawed thing of the jungle. No. You're talking about something that literally rolls up to you to have a Molotov cocktail hurled at it while you sit there.
Yeah, it does feel a little guided safari, but still.
Their new ones are like vans with a bunch of like outboards for all of the sensors and stuff. And like, this probably makes me a bad person, but I look at that and I'm just like, that some cars give you a feeling, right? When you look at a car, it's like this car inspires a certain feeling in the viewer, and I'm like, that car is hapless and I want to bully it. like now before that I did not understand, and I'm just like, oh, they made the most gormless car ever made.
That's for the vans, not for the Jaguars. Right?
No. The Jaguars are just, I mean, like
The Jaguars, I'm just like,
Sure,
why
it's
does this car still exist?
England.
Mostly.
Why does England still exist?
Another good question.
Because they have custodial control of Wales.
Like, oh, here we go.
Someone's got to fund Scotland's healthcare program. Come on.
That's true. That's true.
We're gonna get
But like the Jaguar,
we're gonna get messages for that one.
they should. Yeah, Dov is gonna message all of us for that one. We should get rid of Jaguar. We do not need Hondas with Land Rover engines and electronics in them. So just get rid of Jaguar and let's be done with this sad episode.
We occasionally get reports that people can't tell the difference between all of us. That was Lotax speedrun enjoyer.
It was not me, George. Yep.
On the immortality thing, did you guys see the mole rat stuff this week?
No.
This is really cool.
No.
All right. Give me 90 seconds here, because this is cool. Okay, so naked mole rats live for like 50 years. They live an insanely long time for rodents. And apparently the reason why is that they have a mutant enzyme that is responsible for DNA repair in cells.
Oh.
That they have now isolated, C gas, that they not only have they isolated it, but they've introduced it to other rodents, and it slows and in some cases reduces senescence in cells. So we might be a little closer to the whole immortality thing.
Extending lifespans. I'm on board with that because we've been doing that very consistently for about 2 centuries.
This is how Hell Machine has survived West Portland this long.
Yes. Strict diet of naked mole rats.
Or is he a naked mole rat?
Yeah, are you sure it's just not a bunch of naked mole rats in like a checkered shirt?
From the Oklahoma tundra to the Oklahoma prairie to Portland's rainy environs, the naked mole rat persists. As we were recording this, Reuters reporting showed that the Pentagon is looking to source $1 billion worth of critical mineral inventories for national defense applications. So clearly there is going to be some flow of those into the U.S. economy, into our national defense supply chain. This is one example of how you would go about doing that. Whether those inventories will be sufficient for a prolonged period of time or whether they will be successfully procured, given the risk that China could then cut off access to those critical minerals to whoever supplied them to the U.S. Unclear, but, clearly they're trying to work around this, and it remains to be seen how well that's going to work out.
So we're mostly talking about news from Friday, but we've yet to mention the most important thing that happened on Friday, which is that the Seattle Mariners won a playoff series against the Detroit Tigers. We were triumphant in 15 innings in Seattle, in the third consecutive game played in Seattle that ended with a score of 3-2. Another very, very low scoring game that took forever. Now, if you're not a baseball fan, if you're not a Seattle Mariners fan, you may not realize the scope of this achievement, but it has been a long time since Seattle has played meaningful October baseball. This will be our first appearance in the ALCS in 24 years.
That's the American League Championship Series. It's the
Thanks, not proper.
winner of that goes to the World Series.
The more you know.
Look, we have a jingle. We don't have to substitute. It has been. Was it 2001?
I think we made the LCS in 2001. Yeah,
I thought didn't they get?
Was Ken Griffey still there by then?
No, he was gone at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we lost to the Yankees in 2001. Yeah. That was that.
That's how we got the Subway Series, right?
Yes. No, they Yankees lost to the Diamondbacks that year.
Ah, okay.
That was Randy Johnson revenge.
Randy Johnson killed a bird, and the momentum took them all the way to the World Series.
Something like, yeah. You know, he's a professional photographer these days. He's actually really good.
What does he specialize in? Portraits?
Got to do something.
Wildlife, mostly.
Birds?
Birds.
Has anyone done a welfare check? For those that aren't aware, Randy Johnson is an incredibly fast pitching pitcher who he played for the Arizona Diamondbacks for a number of years, other teams as well. But there's this amazing incident that took place where he threw a pitch, and not intentional in any way, shape, or form, because there's no way anyone could do this on purpose. A bird flew into the path of the pitch and exploded when the ball hit it. Like, when I mean exploded, I mean like the feather puffball is 10 feet across.
On YouTube.
Yeah, it's worth checking out if you don't mind a little bit of bird violence. But again, it was not intentional. It was a freak accident, and it is very fun.
Unfortunate for the seagull, but
they have more.
So the Mariners have had their share of woes. We missed a lot of playoffs narrowly, and we haven't performed particularly well in the playoffs when we've gotten there. And this series also was excruciating. This was one where we were in Game 5, in the decisive Game 5 of this series. The opposing starting pitcher, Tariffs, was probably the best pitcher in the major leagues right now. He struck out, I think it was 15 people in 6 innings. So he was dealing. We couldn't get anything going all game. And then in extra innings, we had something like 6 innings of both teams getting runners in scoring position and then failing to bring anybody home.
Your dog really wants to contribute.
Yeah. We got a lot of dog participation.
The dogs are stoked, man. They're loving it.
You need to be eating the dogs.
We're watching my wife's sister's dogs, so we have 3 times as many dogs right now as we normally do.
That's rookie number.
Yeah,
rookie number.
We're not used to it. We're unaccustomed to this level of caninity.
And they're all Mariners fans.
I think they're Mets fans. I haven't asked.
Ugh.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, now I'm getting the message.
At least it's not the Yankees or the Astros. It's fine.
Ed hates the Mets. That's Ed. Do not direct.
Yeah,
I don't
DMs
hate
to
the
Proctor,
Mets.
Lotax, or George.
I
Ed
find
hates
the Mets comedic.
Ed is talking smack about the Mets. Do not direct hateful messages to Proctor, Lotax, or George on the subject.
We would like to note that Proctor, George, and I, Lotax, not Ed, Lotax, all loved the Mets. Let's go Mets. Tremendous Mets.
Love the Mets. Let's go Mets. Proctor, what does it feel like to have spent the past quarter century watching this team come so close and yet be so far away? Because I mean, there have been some good Mariners teams over that period, right? Since 2001.
There have been, yeah.
They're just not get there. Like what's it like now that I mean, the actual postseason success. Look at this. We have a chance to go to the World Series.
Well, look, I grew up a Washington State University fan. I'm a Coug. So that kind of futility has been my experience of sports fandom for a long, long time. But it feels real good to have the inevitable collapse not happen. It feels much better than having the inevitable collapse happen. I think that as a Mariners fan, sometimes you hear about how, everybody in the stadium knew that we could do it. Everybody in the stadium knew that the team would win. I don't think that was the feeling in the stadium on Friday night. I think that Mariners Nation was hopeful, but you're flashing back through all the ways that sports have hurt you in the past. You're flashing through all of the dumb ways that your team could lose this game, could end their season. Every ball is a chance for things to go horrifically wrong. And yet somehow it didn't happen. That's not what happened. It's freeing. It's a pleasant surprise. It's
once in a while the universe rewards you with a little treat.
Once in a while. Yeah, so now we get to play the Toronto Blue Jays, and hopefully that goes well. Nothing but love to Canada.
You sure?
No,
we hate the Blue Jays.
No,
Correct.
no, fuck the Blue Jays.
How do you hate the Blue Jays of all? I mean, it's just such a hopeless organization for so long.
This actually is kind of a low-key rivalry because the Blue Jays travel extremely well to Seattle. So, like, during the regular season,
Is it a bunch of Vancouverites coming down to fill the stands to cheer on the Blue Jays?
I think so. It's never been clear to me why it is, but like the park is like half Blue Jays fans whenever the Blue Jays are in town.
Oh yeah, that's what it is then. Because
for
those
happens.
of you who aren't up on your Canadian geography, Toronto is a very long way from Vancouver, and Vancouver is very close to Seattle. So the more you know.
But also, like, there's also a lot of locals because there's a lot of Canadians in tech in places like Amazon. And so, yeah, same thing used to happen here, although I think that has cooled off a little bit, though. The Red Sox did have a bench clearing brawl like 2 or 3 years ago with the Blue Jays. So, like, no one liked the Blue Jays.
Hockey rule.
Yeah,
basically. Although I will say, Toronto Leafs fans, impeccable, well-mannered, great people, drink like fish, but, can't complain. Blue Jays,
You would too if you had to deal with the winners up there.
I've been
or the
there.
performance of the Toronto Maple Leafs over the past half century.
I mean,
or so.
yeah, that's true. It is funny hearing Proctor talk about that, though, because, like, before the Red Sox were purchased by people who spent money, I know how that goes because I watched them get washed by basically every possible team in the ALDS and ALCS for like 25 years. Okay, not that. 20.
Yeah, okay, so to be fair, that's not how it went. We weren't in the playoffs. But
that's true.
true.
But like, it's one of those things where it's like, I know this disappointment. It's going to show up. And then you're like, that train is late sometime, but it's never not there.
Do you guys realize how much shit we are going to catch from like Browns and Lions fans for
I'm sorry, what's that?
Y'all lamenting how tough it's been for the
what
Mariners.
The Browns and the Lions.
What is the
about?
Lions?
That is Detroit, Ed. Those are sports teams. Those are NFL teams in Detroit.
I understand what Detroit is. I don't understand what the Lions are.
The Lions are Detroit's football team.
Huh.
Lions are good this year, man. Lions have an exciting team.
Is that right?
No, the Browns are not nearly that racist.
And that one was low tech speedrun enjoyer again, folks.
No, that was still Ed.
Anyway, we've talked.
I wouldn't know that the Browns weren't in Cincinnati because I don't watch football.
We've talked on this podcast before about how sports are, in one sense, a random number generator, right? Like you're comparing these essentially stochastic outputs across a wide history of things, and we're ascribing meaning to them and building narratives in ways that are maybe, pattern-seeking primates attempting to hang a story on something. And I think all of that is true, and it's more true of baseball than any other major North American sport.
There is a reason Stratomatic baseball existed.
Right. You're doing essentially random outcomes over and over again, and sometimes they build together. That said, I think that for that same reason, baseball has more than its share of ghosts. That, you have a long history. They play so many games that you see, again, maybe you hallucinate patterns appearing in the statistics. You see the echoes of things that have happened before, even if they're not actual narrative echoes. You see, the little repeating patterns of things from your memory, from your history with the team, from your history with baseball. And that's kind of an intergenerational thing. And it's kind of beautiful. I think it's uniquely beautiful for baseball.
Also, that season is so damn long that by the time you start it, you're a ghost by the end.
Yeah. I mean, baseball is the professional sport where you can perfectly reasonably show up as a player to the ballpark, and your game is that you're going to be at bat 4 times, and you're going to stand out in the outfield, and you're never going to do anything else. You're going to have no other interaction with the game in any way other than standing on the railing of the dugout as a spectator. That's going to be it. You're going to swing the bat a couple of times over the course of those 4 at-bats. And
probably screw up, statistically speaking.
Probably in a futile way. You're probably not going to do anything useful offensively. Nobody's ever going to hit a ball to you. And you're going to go home, and then you're going to do it again the next day.
In fairness, the modern baseball has a lot more engagement for these low propensity players. You get to do shifts, you get to move around, you get to wear nice sunglasses. Like there's a lot more going for them, and also the millions of dollars. But it's a pretty good gig.
Must be pretty sweet to get paid millions of dollars to screw up at what you were supposed to be best at in the world, like 2/3 of the time.
So you also the 13th man on a basketball team.
Yeah. It's weird how some players bring value to the game, right? Like, one important moment in the game on Friday was Josh Naylor, our first baseman, who I don't think I'm being unfair when I describe him as being vaguely potato sack shaped. He looks like a professional baseball player. I mean, he's an elite athlete. He stole a base at a critical time, and he's stolen 30 bases this year. He's pretty good at it. He has been caught 0 times. And when he stole this base, which ultimately resulted in him scoring a run, he stole third and then scored on a sac fly. They flashed a graphic that said that he has been measured as the 2nd slowest sprint speed in Major League Baseball. He's not a fast man either. He's great at timing the pitcher. That's one of his skills. That's how he steals bases.
And I mean, like, it is funny hearing you say that, because you say a professional athlete in Major League Baseball, and yeah, the training regimens are insane. But then I go, and in any other sport, 1985.
I mean, you get some weird body guys playing professional sports. You get a lot of hyper specialization.
Yep.
So how does he compare? You say he's potato shaped. How does he compare with, like, I've never seen him before, obviously, Cecil Fielder?
I mean, no one.
Okay.
No one's quite like that.
Like,
just to give the audience a sense of just how fucking old I am.
Yeah,
it's because our entire audience is 38. I know.
He's not like fat. He's just kind of a sagging goblin man.
Wow.
I mean,
and this is somebody proper like.
Yeah, no, he's great. But like, he's
damn.
He's got a first baseman's build.
Wow.
That's it for us this week on Normal Men. If you get a chance, it would be great if you could rate and review this podcast wherever you're listening to it, whatever podcast app, store, thing, whatever. We don't care. Just rate review. We'd love it if you could. From Porto, Portugal, I'm George.
From the District of Columbia, I'm Proctor.
From outer Florida, I'm low tax speedrun enjoyer.
And from Boston, I'm Ed.
Stay normal, y'all.